You stand in a dusty field, the sun a dull smear over 1381 England, your hands blistered from gripping a scythe meant for wheat, not war. The air's thick with sweat and mutters. Your neighbours, your kin, all spitting curses at the king's new poll tax, a coin-sucking leech that's bled your village dry. Pay for his wars, his silks, his bloody banquets, old John growls, his pitchfork trembling. You nod, stomach gnawing, because last week you sold your only pig to dodge the taxman's whip. Now whispers of revolt spark like dry tinder, and you're caught in the blaze. They call it the peasants' revolt, but it feels like a fever dream. Someone, what Tyler they say, a roofer with a voice like gravel, preaches freedom, says God's on your side. You half believe it, clutching a rosary as you march, the crowd swelling with every muddy lane. Bakers, weavers, even the blacksmith's boy, all armed with tools turned weapons, chant prayers like war cries. It's absurd, this ragtag mob thinking they'll topple lords, but your heart thumps with mad hope. You imagine a world where your kids don't starve, where you're not chained to a lord's whim. The village square's a chaos of shouts and shoved shoulders. A priest, half drunk, blesses your scythe, muttering Latin that sounds more curse than prayer. God wills it, he slurs, and the crowd roars, though you're not sure if it's faith or rage. You're no soldier. Your hands shake, your boots are patched, but the taxman's sneer haunts you, his ledger a noose around your neck, so you march, scythe heavy, toward the manor on the hill. It's a suicide pact, maybe, but it's yours. Dust chokes your throat as the mob surges, a beast of 1,000 arms. Women scream defiance, their aprons stuffed with stones. Kids dart between legs, clutching sticks like swords. You trip over a rut, catch a whiff of sour ale on someone's breath, and laugh despite yourself. This is your army? A medieval flash mob, half-starved and half-mad, ready to storm a castle with gardening tools. Yet there's a thrill in it, a pulse of something bigger than you, like you're carving your name into history's hide. The manor looms, its stone walls mocking your rusted blade. You picture the lord inside, sipping wine while you scrape dirt for his taxes. Rage bubbles, hot as the summer air, and you tighten your grip. What Tyler's voice cuts through the din, urging you on, promising justice. You want to believe him, want to think this isn't just a drunken lark gone lethal. But the manor's gates are iron, and the guards have swords, not sickles. You swallow hard, tasting dust and fear, and step forward anyway. This is no noble quest, no ballad for minstrels. It's mud and sweat, faith and folly, a desperate lunge at a world that's crushed you too long. You're no hero, just a farmer with a blade, but tonight you'll burn something down. Whether it's the manor or your own thin hopes, you're not sure. The crowd surges and you're carried along, scythe raised, into the fire of what's next. The manor's gate splinters under a tide of clubs and boots, and you're swept inside. Torchlight painting 1381's night a flickering red. The air's sharp with smoke and the tang of looted wine. Your fellow rebels already raiding the cellars, their cheers slurred but fierce. You clutch your scythe, its blade catching the fire's glow, and stumble through the Lord's hall, where tapestries of smug saints burn like kindling. This is the peasants' revolt, a drunken divine rampage, and you're knee-deep in its glorious mess, half-thrilled, half-terrified. The hall's a fevered blur, tables overturned, silver goblets kicked across the floor. A woman, Marjorie, cackles as she hurls a candelabra through a window, glass shattering like a noble's pride. You'd laugh, but the smoke stings your eyes, and the heat's a beast gnawing your skin. Rebels swarm, some smashing vases, others guzzling wine straight from casks, their faces smeared with glee and soot. It's chaos, a medieval rave gone feral, and you're caught in its pulse, your heart hammering like a war drum. You push deeper past a splintered door into the Lord's private chambers. His velvet bed curtains are ablaze, and you gag on the reek of charred wool. A lad, barely 14, swings a flail at a locked chest, shouting about our gold. You want to tell him it's not that simple, but the mob's roar drowns you out. You're no thief, yet your hands itch to tear something apart. Maybe the Lord's ledgers, those cursed lists that bled your village dry. You spot a pile of parchments and hurl them into the fire, watching ink curl like dying snakes. Someone thrusts a wineskin at you, and you drink, the sour liquid burning your throat. It's the Lord's vintage, meant for silk-clad lips, not your cracked ones. The irony's rich, and you smirk, imagining his face when he finds his cellar drained. But the wine's a trap. Your head spins and the hall feels like a tilting ship. You're no warrior, just a farmer drunk on stolen courage, and the guards could charge in any second. Still, you shout with the others, your voice raw, because this moment, this reckless, blazing moment, is yours. Outside, the fire spreads, licking the manor's stone walls. Rebels dance in its glow, their shadows monstrous on the grass. You hear Wat Tyler's name chanted, a gritty prayer, as if he's a saint who'll save you all. But the wine's fog clears, and dread creeps in. The Lord's fled, they say, and his knights are coming, their swords real, not repurposed ploughs. You grip your scythe tighter, its weight a reminder of how far you've strayed from your fields. This isn't victory, not yet. It's a spark, a mad fling with power before the noose tightens. You step back into the hall, smoke curling like a lover's whisper, and join the chant. The manor burns, and with it, a sliver of the world that chained you. Tomorrow might bring blood, but tonight, you're a torch in the dark, and that's enough. You're wobbling through the smouldering manor in 1381 England, a looted breastplate strapped to your chest, its weight crushing your ribs like a tax collector's greed. The peasants' revolt has turned you into a mockery of a knight, your farmer's frame drowning in pilfered armour that clanks with every step. The hall reeks of charred wood and spilled wine, and your mates, equally absurd in mismatched mail, stumble beside you, grinning like kids playing dress-up. This is no chivalric tale. It's a medieval LARP gone lethal, and you're the fool in borrowed steel praying you don't trip into a spear. The armour's a prize from the Lord's armoury, snatched in the riot's fever. You thought it'd make you invincible, but the helmet's too big, sliding over your eyes, and the greaves pinch your shins raw. You look like a scarecrow stuffed in a tin suit, and the others are no better. Tom the baker's got a gauntlet on one hand, a sickle in the other, swearing he's Sir Tom now. You'd laugh, but a guard's corpse lies nearby, his blood pooling on the flagstones, a reminder this game has stakes sharper than your wit. You lurch forward, the mob's cheers echoing through the manor's gutted halls. Someone's torched another tapestry, and the smoke's a claw in your throat. You swing your scythe, more to feel bold than to fight, but it catches on a chandelier, yanking you off balance. The crash draws hoots from the crowd, and you curse, face hot under the helm. "Knight my arse," a woman jeers, her apron singed but her grin wide. This revolt's a circus, and you're the clumsy acrobat armed with farm tools and delusional grit. Yet there's a thrill in the clank of your stolen gear, a mad spark of power. You're no serf tonight, not while you wear a lord's armour, even if it fits like a coffin. You imagine storming London like this, a peasant-turned-paladin toppling the king's tacksman. It's a fever dream, fed by Wat Tyler's promises and the wine you swigged earlier, but the armour's weight drags you down, and every step's a battle against gravity and good sense. You're not built for this, and the guards, real knights, could ride in any moment, their blades carving through your tin bravado. You stumble into the courtyard, where rebels dance in the firelight, some twirling looted swords like drunken jugglers. A lad's got a dented helm, shouting he'll slay dragons, though he can barely lift it. You want to believe this chaos could rewrite the world, but the armour's rubbing blisters, and doubt creeps in like damp rot. The manor's burning, but so's your strength, and the revolt feels like a candle flaring before it gutters out. Still, you straighten, scythe in hand, and join the chant for Tyler, your voice muffled by the helm. You're a mock knight, sure, but tonight you're something more, a spark of defiance in a world that's kicked you too long. The armour may not fit, but the rage does, and that's enough to keep you stumbling forward, into the revolt's bloody heart. You're packed shoulder to shoulder in a looted manor courtyard, 1381 England, the air electric with sweat and smoke as Wat Tyler's voice rips through the peasants' revolt like a thunderclap. He's no lord, just a roofer with a scarred face and a tongue sharp as your scythe, but when he speaks, it's like gods lent him fire. They tax your breath, your blood. Will you let them? He roars, and the mob howls, a beast waking from a long sleep. You're caught in it, heart pounding, half drunk on his words, ready to burn the world for a taste of freedom. Tyler stands on a shattered table, his shadow dancing in the torchlight, a preacher in a butcher's apron. He's not tall, but his voice fills the night, gritty as gravel, promising a world where lords kneel to you, not the other way round. You believe him, or want to, because the alternative's another year of scraping dirt for taxes that feed the king's wars. Your scythe's heavy, your hands blistered, but Tyler's words are a spark, and the crowd's a powder keg. Farmers, weavers, widows, all chanting his name like a prayer. The manor's a ruin now, its walls licked by flames, but Tyler's got bigger plans. He talks of London, of storming the king's gates, of tearing down the ledgers that chain you. You picture it, a city bowing to your rusted blades, and it's absurd, like a pig dreaming of flight. Yet his voice makes it real, each word a brick in a mad, glorious vision. "God's with us," he shouts, and you clutch your rosary, half expecting angels to join the march. This isn't just a riot, it's a holy war, or so it feels in the fire's glow. But there's a crack in the dream. Tyler's eyes, sharp and restless, scan the mob like he knows betrayal's lurking. You've heard whispers, some rebels take bribes, others flee at dawn. The wine you drank sours in your gut, and the cold bites your patched boots. You're no crusader, just a farmer who's seen too many kids bury their hunger. Tyler's fire burns bright, but the lords have armies, and their swords don't break like ploughshares. You shove the thought down, caught in the crowd's fever, your voice joining theirs in a ragged hymn. He points to the hill where London waits, and the mob surges, torches bobbing like stars gone rogue. You're carried along, scythe raised, Tyler's words echoing in your skull. The courtyard's a chaos of shouts and clanking loot, women braiding defiance into their hair, lads waving sticks like banners. It's a medieval rave, holy and unhinged, and you're all in, even if it's a one-way trip. The smoke's thick, the stars dim, but Tyler's voice cuts through, a blade of hope in a world of chains. You don't know if he's a saviour or a madman, but tonight he's your spark. The revolt's a gamble, and you're betting your life on his fire. You march, the manor's embers fading behind you, toward a city that might eat you alive. For now you're alive, and that's enough. You're swept through 1381 England's twilight, boots sinking into mud as the peasants' revolt carries you toward London's looming walls. The city's gates rise like a lord's sneer, but your mob, hundreds strong, reeking of sweat and looted ale, crashes against them like a wave. Scythe in hand, you shove forward, heart hammering, caught in a tide of screams and torchlight. This is no orderly siege, it's a medieval mosh pit, a chaotic surge of farmers and widows out to claw freedom from stone. What Tyler's voice, hoarse but fierce, urges you on, and for a mad moment, you believe you'll topple a city with your rusted blade. The gates shudder under a storm of clubs and shoulders. Guards, outnumbered, falter, their pikes no match for your mob's raw hunger. You're no soldier, just a farmer whose kids went hungry for the king's taxes, but rage makes you bold. You slam your scythe's handle against the wood, splinters flying, and feel the crowd's pulse, part prayer, part roar. A woman beside you, her hair wild, hurls a stone that cracks a guard's helm, and he drops. The gate groans, then gives, and you're through, spilling into London's streets like a burst dam. Cobblestones slick with muck greet you, the city a maze of narrow alleys and gawking faces. Merchants slam shutters, but some cheer, tossing bread to your ragtag army. You catch a loaf, its crust gritty, and tear into it, hunger sharper than your blade. The mob's a beast now, torch flames licking shop fronts, and you're its claw, slashing at the air, drunk on the impossible. London's yours, or so it feels, as you charge past churches and taverns, Tyler's name a chant that shakes the stars. But the city's no dream. Smoke curls from a burning tax office, and you gag on its acrid bite. Rebels loot stalls, pocketing coins they'll never spend, while others smash windows for the sheer joy of it. You pass a priest muttering curses, his cross raised like a shield, and wonder if God's really on your side. The wine you drank earlier sours in your gut, and doubt creeps in. London's vast, its lords armed, and your scythe's no match for steel. Still, you push on, carried by the mob's fever, your patched boots slapping stone. A scream cuts the air. A guard's pinned, his armour dented by a butcher's flail. You flinch, blood's copper tang hitting your nose, but the crowd cheers, and you're swept past toward the tower's shadow. Tyler's promised justice, and you cling to that, even as the city's chaos mirrors your own fraying hope. This is your moment, a farmer storming a capital, but it's a spark in a storm, bright and doomed. You grip your scythe, its weight your only anchor, and plunge deeper into London's heart. The gates are down, but the fight's just begun. You're no hero, just a man with a tool and a grudge, and tonight you've cracked a city open. What comes next? Glory or a noose? You can't say, but you're all in, shouting with the mob as the streets burn. You're deep in London's burning streets, 1381, the peasants' revolt, a bloody carnival around you. The air's thick with smoke and the copper stench of blood, your scythe slick with sweat as you march with a mob gone feral. Ahead, rebels hoist a taxman's head on a pike, its jaw slack, eyes staring through you. The crowd cheers, a guttural hymn to vengeance, and you gag, caught between horror and the thrill of justice. This isn't your village's harvest dance, it's a medieval roast gone grim, and you're holding a front row seat, stomach churning but feet still moving. The taxman's name was John, they say, a clerk who squeezed your village for every penny, his ledger a death sentence for your kin. Now his head bobs above the mob, a grotesque trophy paraded through London's alleys. You remember his smirk, his quill scratching your family's ruin, and part of you wants to cheer with the others, but the sight's a gut punch. Blood drips from the pike, splattering cobblestones, and the crowd's laughter feels like a fever. You're no killer, just a farmer, but tonight you're complicit. Your scythe a silent accomplice. Rebels swarm, some waving more pikes, each crowned with a noble's lackey. A woman, her apron stained, screams, "For our children!" as she thrusts a head skyward, and the mob roars, torchlight painting their faces demonic. You're shoved along, tripping over a shattered crate, the city a blur of fire and fury. It's not glory, this parade of gore, but it's power, raw and ugly, and you feel its pull. You'd never post this on some medieval Instagram, but here you are marching with the butchers, your heart a drum of dread and defiance. The heads aren't just trophies. They're a message, scrawled in blood for every lord to read. You pass a church, its doors barred, and hear priests muttering prayers against your heresy. You clutch your rosary, half praying yourself because what Tyler's promised freedom, but this feels like damnation. The mob turns down an alley, pikes swaying like grim standards, and you spot a boy, barely 10, mimicking the chant, his stick raised like a pike. The innocents twist your gut worse than the blood, and you wonder what you've all become. A rebel hands you a wineskin and you drink, the sour burn steadying your shaking hands. The heads bob higher, drawing gasps from onlookers peering from windows. You want to believe this is justice, that each severed neck buys your kids a future, but the pike's shadows stretch long, and London's nights are coming. Tyler's voice echoes somewhere, urging you on, but it's fainter now, drowned by the mob's snarl. You're in too deep, your scythe heavy with the night's sins, and there's no turning back. The parade snakes toward the tower, where the king hides, and you march, caught in the revolt's bloody rhythm. You're no avenger, just a man with a grudge and a blade, but tonight you've helped raise heads to the sky. The mob chants and you join, voice cracking, because this is your fight, even if it's carving your own noose. You're reeling through London's smoke-choked streets in 1381, the peasants' revolt, a drunken whirlwind around you. Your scythe dangles, forgotten, as you clutch a pilfered wineskin, its contents sloshing like the mob's chaotic pulse. Rebels raid a noble's cellar, casks smashed open, red streams pooling on the cobblestones. Laughter and slurred war cries echo, your mates guzzling the Lord's finest vintage as if it's holy water. This isn't a rebellion anymore. It's a medieval frat party gone feral, and you're swept up, lips stained, head spinning, half lost in the spree's mad joy. The cellar's a damp crypt, lit by flickering torches that cast shadows like dancing demons. Barrels lie splintered, their oak guts spilling wine that smells of wealth and rot. You stumble over a shattered bottle, catching yourself on a wall slick with mildew. A baker, his apron soaked red, thrusts a jug at you, shouting, "Drink to freedom!" You do. The wine's bite scorching your throat, and for a moment you're not a starving farmer but a king in this underworld of loot and lunacy. The mob's a chorus of hiccups and roars, some singing hymns, others cursing lords, all drunk on stolen power. You lurch back to the street where rebels dance in the firelight, their faces smeared with wine and soot. A woman, her hair a wild halo, spins with a silver goblet, proclaiming herself Queen of the Night. You laugh, the sound raw, because this is absurd, a ragtag army toasting their own doom. Your scythe scrapes the ground, useless now as you swig again, the world tilting like a ship in a storm. It's not just wine, it's defiance, each gulp a middle finger to the lords who taxed your last coin. But the buzz can't drown the dread. This party's a spark in a powder keg and the king's men are coming. Someone's set a cart ablaze, its flames licking the night, and you join the cheer, though your stomach churns. The wine's turned sour, or maybe it's the memory of the tacksman's head on a pike, its dead eyes haunting you. You're no thief, no warrior, just a man who's tasted a lord's life for one reckless night. The mob surges, looting shops now, grabbing silks they'll never wear, coins they'll never spend. You pocket a brass ring, its weight a guilty thrill, and wonder if you're a rebel or just a drunk in over his head. Wat Tyler's name floats through the chaos, a fading echo. He's out there, planning the next move. But here, it's just you and the wine, the fire, the fleeting dream of a world turned upside down. Your boots slip in a puddle, wine or blood, you can't tell, and you catch a glimpse of a church spire, its cross judging your revelry. The revolt's a fever, and you're burning up, caught in a spree that's as glorious as it is doomed. You raise the wineskin, one last toast to the night you stole from the lords. Tomorrow might bring swords, but tonight you're alive, drunk and free, even if it's just a lie you've poured down your throat. The mob roars, and you stagger on into the revolt's hazy heart. You stand in a trampled field outside London, 1381, the peasants' revolt a brittle thread holding your mob together. King Richard II, a boy barely 14, faces you from his horse, his crown glinting like a lie in the morning sun. Wat Tyler's at your side, his voice low, urging trust, but the air's thick with tension, the kind that hums before a storm. Your scythe's heavy, your hands wine-stained from last night's spree, and the crowd's whispers, hopeful, wary, buzz like flies. This is no victory march, it's a gamble, and the king's promise of mercy feels like a noose dressed in silk. Richard's voice, high and practiced, offers pardons, land, freedom, words you've dreamed of since the tacksman first knocked. Your grievances will be heard, he says, his lords nodding like puppets. You want to believe it, want to see your kids grow without a lord's boot on their necks. The mob sways, some cheering, others clutching pitchforks tighter. Tyler nods, but his eyes are sharp, scanning the royal banners flapping in the breeze. You've burned manors, raised heads on pikes, and now the king's here, promising peace. It's too easy, like a fairy tale told by a wolf. The field's a sea of mud and hope, rebels in looted armour standing shoulder to shoulder with women wielding knives. You're no fool, but the king's words are honey, and hunger makes you weak. You picture your village, free of tax ledgers, your family eating more than scraps. A man beside you, his face scarred, mutters, "He's a boy, not God." And you nod, the wine's fog clearing. The lord's horses paw the ground, their riders' hands near swords, and the promise feels thinner with every breath. Tyler steps forward to speak, his voice a gritty challenge, and you hold your breath, scythe ready. Suspense coils like smoke. The king's men are too calm, their smiles too sharp. You've seen traps before, foxes lured by bait, then snared. The mob's restless, some shouting for justice, others begging for the pardon to be real. You're caught in the middle, your patched boots sinking into the mud, your heart torn between hope and dread. Tyler's words to Richard are bold, demanding rights, not scraps, but the lord's eyes narrow, and you taste betrayal in the air, bitter as ash. This isn't a parley, it's a stage, and you're the fool in the script. A shout breaks the tension. Someone spotted archers in the trees. The mob stirs and you grip your scythe, its blade dull but eager. Richard raises a hand, swearing peace, but his voice cracks, a boy playing king in a game too big. Tyler's still talking, but you're watching the lords, their hands twitching, their promises hollow as a dry well. The field's a tinderbox, and you're standing in it, a farmer who's dared too much. The revolt's brought you here, to this moment of fragile hope, but the king's words are a spark that could burn you all. You're no hero, just a man with a blade and a grudge, but you've seen too much to trust a crown. The mob waits, and you wait with them, scythe raised, knowing this promise is a door to either freedom or a grave. Tyler's voice rises, and you lean in, desperate for a sign as the king's false dawn breaks over the field. You're frozen in a muddy field outside London, 1381, the peasants' revolt teetering on a knife's edge as Wat Tyler faces King Richard II. The air's sour with sweat and betrayal, your scythe a dead weight in your calloused hands. Tyler's voice, gritty as ever, demands rights, not promises, but the Lord's eyes glint like wolves circling a lame deer. You're no strategist, just a farmer caught in this deadly parley, and when the blade flashes, it's not a negotiation, it's a medieval gut punch, and Tyler's blood sprays the grass, sealing your rebellion's doom. The strike's sudden, a lord's dagger plunging into Tyler's neck as he turns to gesture at the mob. He staggers, choking, his fire snuffed out in a crimson gush. You gasp, the mob's roar turning to a stunned wail, your heart a stone in your chest. This was your spark, your preacher, the man who made you believe a scythe could carve freedom. Now he's a heap, his apron soaked red, and the king's men close ranks, their swords drawn, their promises dust. You grip your scythe, rage and fear warring, but the mob's faltering, a beast with its head cut off. Richard's voice, sharp and boyish, shouts for order, swearing pardons if you kneel. It's a lie, slick as the blood pooling under Tyler's corpse, but some rebels drop their tools, hope blinding them. You don't move, rooted by the sight of Tyler's lifeless eyes, staring at a sky that didn't save him. The Lords laugh, a sound like breaking bones, and you realise this was planned. A trap baited with honeyed words. Your revolt, your mad dream of justice, lies bleeding with Tyler, and the field feels like a grave you've dug yourself. A woman screams, her knife flashing as she lunges at a guard, only to be cut down. The mob surges, then scatters, some fighting, others fleeing into the haze. You're shoved back, tripping over a discarded pitchfork, the air thick with panic and steel's clang. Your scythe's useless now, too slow for swordsmen, and you're no hero, just a man who followed a roofer to his death. The king's banners flap, mocking your patched boots, your wine-stained hands, your fool's hope that God was on your side. You stumble through the chaos, Tyler's blood a red smear in your memory. Rebels cry his name, a dying chant, but the Lord's horses charge, trampling dreams under hoof. You duck behind a hedge, breath ragged, and see the truth. This was never your fight to win. Tyler's end is yours too, a slow bleed of hope as the revolt crumbles. You're a farmer, not a martyr, but tonight you've lost more than a leader. You've lost the fire that made you march. The field empties, save for bodies and broken tools. You clutch your scythe, its blade dull as your future, and slip into the dusk, a ghost of the revolt that dared too much. Tyler's gone, and with him, the world you almost touched. You're hiding in a copse near London, 1381, the peasants' revolt a fading ember as the king's men hunt your scattered mob. Your scythes buried in the dirt, too heavy for a fugitive, and the air's sharp with damp earth and fear. Ropes creak in the distance, rebels, your neighbours, your kin, swinging from gallows, their dreams of freedom knotted tight. The revolt's over, crushed under hoof and steel, and you're a ghost in your own land, haunted by the cost of daring. This isn't a ballad, it's a medieval nightmare, and you're living its grim epilogue. The hanging started at dawn, lords reclaiming their power with hemp and hate. You saw Tom the baker, his apron still stained, kick air as the noose snapped his neck. Marjorie, who hurled stones at guards, dangles beside him, her defiance silenced. You crouch lower, heart pounding, because your name's on their lists. Your scythes rust a brand of treason. The revolt was your spark, Wat Tyler's fire, your wine-fueled spree, but now it's a pyre, and the dreamers are fuel. You're no martyr, just a farmer who wanted his kids to eat, and that makes the ropes cut deeper. The gallows creak is a hymn of defeat, each sway a reminder of Tyler's blood, the king's lies, the mob's broken roar. You hear whispers. Some rebels turn to traitor, selling names for mercy, but mercy's a lord's jest, and they hang too. The air's heavy with rot, bodies left to sway as warnings, their shadows stretching across fields you once ploughed. You clutch your rosary, praying for forgiveness, for survival, but God feels distant, his will tangled in the king's banners. The revolt's legacy is this: a forest of nooses, a silence cry. You crawl through brambles, thorns tearing your patched tunic, and glimpse a village in the distance, its hearths cold. Survivors huddle there, you hope, but the Lord's riders scour the land, their torches like wolves' eyes. You're no leader, no hero, just a man who marched with a scythe and lost everything but breath. The hanged dreamers haunt you. Tom's laugh, Marjorie's snarl, and you wonder if you'll join them, your neck stretched for a king who never saw your face. The revolt was a spark, but sparks die, and the night's colder for it. A twig snaps and you freeze, breath held, expecting steel. It's just a fox, but your heart's a drum, and the gallows creak echoes in your skull. You think of your kids, waiting for a father who burned manors and raised pikes. The revolt's cost is carved in their hunger, your shame, the ropes that choke your hope. You're a fugitive now, a shadow of the farmer who chanted Tyler's name, and survival's a bitter prize. You move on, the gallows fading behind you, but their weight clings, a chain heavier than any lord's tax. The peasant's revolt is dead, and you're its ghost, stumbling through a world that won't forgive. The dreamers hang, and you carry their silence, a wound that won't close. You're skulking through a misty dawn in 1381 England, the peasant's revolt a broken dream as you dodge the king's hunters. Your scythes long gone, traded for a cloak to hide your traitor's face. But the village church looms ahead, its spire a crooked finger judging your sins. Inside, priests chant curses, their voices a low drone that chills your bones, branding you and your rebel kin heretics for daring to rise. The air's thick with incense and spite, and you're no saint, just a farmer who burned manors, now caught in a holy wrath that stings worse than a noose. This isn't salvation, it's a medieval blacklist, and your name's scrawled in their prayers. You press against the church's cold stone, peering through a cracked window. Candlelight flickers over robed figures, their Latin a hiss of venom, damning Wat Tyler's ghost and every soul who marched with him. God's wrath upon the defilers, one intones, his cross raised like a blade, and you flinch, your rosary heavy in your pocket. You prayed with them once, knelt in this pew, but now you're the devil they curse, your revolt a blasphemy that shook their altars. The incense chokes you, its sweetness a lie, and you wonder if God's turned his back, or if the priests just speak for the lords. The mob scattered, some hanged, others hiding like you, but the priests' words hunt you all. Their curses are net tighter than any rope. They call you a plague, a stain on Christ's order, and the villagers listening, your neighbours, nod, fear glazing their eyes. You're no heretic, just a man who wanted his kids fed, but the church's power is older than your rage, its chants weaving a spell that brands you forever. A priest scatters ash, a ritual to cleanse your evil, and you smirk, bitter, because the only evil was the taxman's greed that sparked this mess. Your breath fogs the window, and you pull back, the chants following like hounds. You remember Tyler's fire, his voice promising a world where lords and priests don't choke you. Now he's dead, and the church curses his name, erasing your revolt as a devil's whim. The irony's sharp. You fought for God's justice, or so you thought, but the priests say God's with the king and not the scythe-wielding rabble. Your patched boots crunch on frost, and you slip into the woods, their voices a weight you can't outrun. A twig snaps, and you freeze, heart hammering, but it's just a deer. The curses linger though, a poison in your blood. You're a fugitive, marked by heaven and earth, and the church's walls feel like a cage you'll never escape. The revolt's embers are cold, and you're its ash, scattered by a divine wrath you didn't see coming. You clutch your rosary, but it's just beads now, not hope. You move on, the church's spire fading, but the priest's curses cling, a shadow heavier than the gallows. The peasant's revolt dared to dream, and you with it, but dreams burn, and you're left with the smoke, a farmer cursed for wanting more. You're back in the smouldering ruins of a noble's manor, 1381 England, the peasant's revolt, a fading wildfire that's left you rummaging through looted halls. Your scythes propped against a shattered door, useless now as you pour through the wreckage, fingers brushing silk and silver. The air's heavy with ash and greed. The mob's frenzy turn to scavenging as rebels grab what they can before the Lord's riders return. This isn't glory, it's a medieval yard sale gone grim, and you're no thief. Just a farmer snatching scraps from a world that starved you. Your heart a tangle of thrill and shame. The hall's a corpse of its former pomp. Tapestries slashed, tables splintered, chandeliers smashed into glittering dust. You kick through debris, finding a velvet cloak, its hem singed but soft as a lord's lie. You drape it over your patched tunic, laughing at the absurdity. You, a serf, playing noble in a burning house. Other rebels swarm, some stuffing sacks with candlesticks, others tearing curtains for the sheer joy of it. A lad, his face smudged, clutches a gilt mirror, grinning like he's won a kingdom. It's chaos, a drunken spree after the wine ran dry, and you're caught in its fever, pocketing a silver spoon you'll never use. Glass crunches underfoot, the sound sharp as your guilt. You think of Wat Tyler, his blood still fresh in your mind, and wonder if this is what he meant by freedom, stealing finery while the gallows wait. The mob's laughter's hollow now, the fire's glow fading, and you spot a woman, her apron bulging with looted plates, muttering about feeding her kids. You get it. Every trinket's a meal, a defiance of the lords who taxed your last coin. But the hall's shadows stretch, and the thrill sours. You're looting a grave, and the dead might still bite. You find a locked chest, its iron bands mocking your empty hands. A rebel with a flail smashes it open, spilling coins and parchments, tax ledgers maybe, the kind that bled your village dry. You grab a handful, their ink smudged, and toss them into a nearby fire, watching them curl like dying lies. The act's a spark, a flicker of the revolt's old rage, but it's fleeting. The lords are coming, their horses' hoofbeats a distant drum, and this loot won't save you from their swords. You're no victor, just a scavenger in a war you've already lost. Someone shouts. A rider's been spotted. The mob scatters, clutching their spoils, and you grab the cloak, its weight a foolish comfort. You flee the hall, its looted splendour a fading dream, your boots slipping on ash-slick stone. The revolt was your chance, your mad lunge at a better world, but now it's just you, a stolen spoon, and a cloak that marks you as a target. The manor's embers glow behind you, a funeral pyre for your hopes. You melt into the night. The looted hall's a memory you'll carry like a wound. The peasants' revolt burned bright, and you with it. But fires die, and you're left with ashes, a farmer who stole a lord's rags and lost everything else. You're weaving through London's smoky chaos, 1381, the peasants' revolt a dying flame, your stolen cloak dragging in the mud. The mob's thinning, but a new roar rises. Women, their aprons tied tight, wielding knives and stones, their wrath a fire the lords didn't see coming. These aren't meek wives, they're furies, their screams sharp as the blades they've sharpened on hearthstones. You're no leader, just a farmer clutching a dull scythe, but their fury pulls you in, a tide of rage against a world that taxed their children's bones. This isn't a side act. It's a medieval uprising of mothers and widows, and their knives cut deeper than your dreams. They swarm a tax collector's house, its shutters barred but no match for their vengeance. A woman, Ellen you think, her face lined with hunger, smashes a window with a rock, her shout a hymn of defiance. "For my boys," she cries, and others echo, their voices a chorus of grief-turned weapon. Knives flash carving through doors, and you follow, heart pounding as they storm inside. You've seen men fight, but this is different. Raw, personal, each stab a debt repaid for years of empty bellies. Their aprons are blood-flecked now, their eyes wild, and you're half afraid, half awed, a witness to a wrath that could burn kingdoms. The house is a wreck. Ledgers torn, coins scattered, a portrait of some lord slashed to ribbons. You trip over a splintered chair, catching Ellen's arm as she hurls a candlestick at a locked chest. "They took my sons for their wars," she spits, and you nod. Your own losses are not in your throat. These women aren't looting for gain. They're destroying the machine that ground them down. A younger one, barely 16, swings a cleaver at a tax roll, her laughter sharp and unhinged. It's a medieval riot gone matriarchal, and you're swept along, your scythe a prop in their bloody play. But the air's heavy with doom. Hoofbeats echo, knights closing in. The women don't flinch. They pile furniture against the door, their knives ready. You're no fighter, but you shove a table with them, sweat stinging your eyes, because their wrath is yours too. The taxman's greed starved your kin just as much. Smoke curls from a nearby fire and you cough, the women's chants drowning out your fear. They're not what Tyler's fire, not the mob's wine-soaked spree. They're a quieter, fiercer blaze, and you're burning with them, even if it's your last stand. A scream. Soldiers breach the door, swords gleaming. Ellen swings her knife, taking a guard's hand before she falls, blood pooling. You freeze, scythe, useless, as the women fight, their wrath a spark in the dark. Some escape through a back window, but others stay, their blades a final defiance. You're no hero, just a man caught in their storm, and you flee, their screams haunting you. The revolt's fading, but these women carved their mark, and you'll carry it, a scar of their unbreakable rage. You slip into an alley, the women's wrath afire in your chest. The peasants' revolt is crumbling, but they fought, and you were there, a witness to a fury that shook the Lord's world, if only for a night. You're crouched in a looted tax office in London, 1381. The peasants' revolt a flickering ember as you feed parchments to a fire. The air's thick with ink and ash, the mob's roar muted now. But your hands tremble with purpose, tossing ledgers, those cursed lists of debts, into the flames. Each page curls, a life freed from the Lord's grip, and you're no scholar, just a farmer whose family bled for these numbers. This isn't theft, it's justice, a medieval data wipe, and you're burning the chains that bound your village, one sheet at a time. The office is a shambles, desks smashed, quills snapped, ink pots shattered like noble egos. You grab another ledger, its vellum heavy with names, yours, your neighbours', your dead brothers'. The taxman's scrawl is a spider's web, trapping you in debts for wars you never fought. You hurl it into the fire, watching the ink sizzle, a black scream against the orange glow. Rebels around you do the same, their faces lit with grim joy. Tom, the weaver, laughs as he burns a scroll, shouting, "No more tithes!" It's a ritual, a cleansing, and you're all priests of this fleeting rebellion. The flames leap, licking the ceiling, and you cough, ash coating your throat. You're not Wat Tyler, not a leader, but this act feels holy, like spitting in the king's eye. The records hold your village's pain. Crops seized, kids starved, all for a lord's silk purse. Burning them won't fill bellies, but it's a spark of power, a moment where you're not a serf but a force. A woman tosses a tax roll in, her hands bloodied from earlier fights, and you nod, the fire a bond between you, hotter than the wine-fueled sprees of the nights past. But the crackle of flames carries danger. Shouts outside, soldiers, their armour clanking closer. The revolt's unravelling, Tyler's blood a fresh wound, and this office is a trap you've set for yourself. You grab one last ledger, its pages thick with the king's greed, and thrust it into the blaze, the heat searing your knuckles. The mob's thinning, some fleeing through a back door, but you linger, mesmerised by the fire's hunger, each burning name a defiance of the world that crushed you. You're no hero, just a man with a grudge, and this is your stand. A beam groans, the roof sagging as the fire spreads. You stumble back, the cloak you stole heavy with soot, and hear a rebel scream, caught by guards at the door. Your heart races, but you can't stop, not when the ledgers are still burning, erasing the Lord's hold. The flames roar, a beast you've unleashed, and you slip out a window, glass cutting your palm. The night swallows you, the office a pyre behind, its records ash by dawn. You run, the burning records aglow in your memory, a fleeting victory in a revolt that's lost its fire. The peasants' revolt dared to rewrite the world, and you helped burn its chains, if only for a night. The lords will write new ledgers, but you've left a mark, a farmer who turned their greed to smoke. You're slipping through London's shadowed alleys, 1381, the peasants' revolt a fading pulse as you dodge the king's riders. Your stolen cloak's torn, your scythe abandoned, but a new sound stops you. A high, defiant chant like birds turned warriors. It's the children, barely taller than your waist, marching with sticks and stones, mimicking the mob that burned manors. Their faces are smudged with soot, their eyes bright with a courage that twists your heart. This isn't a game, it's a medieval crusade of innocence, and you're no protector, just a farmer haunted by their reckless hope. They stream past, a ragtag parade led by a boy, maybe 12, waving a splintered plank like a banner. "For Tyler," he shouts, his voice cracking, and the others echo, clutching slingshots and kitchen knives. You recognise some, your neighbour's girl, her braid swinging, the miller's son, his cap too big. They've seen the pikes, the hangings, yet here they are playing rebels in a war that's eating their kin. You want to grab them, drag them home, but their chants are fire, and you're caught in its glow, a witness to a bravery you've lost. The alley opens to a square where the children face a tacksman's cart, its wheels stuck in mud. They pelt it with stones, cheering as a window cracks. The driver flees, and the kids swarm, tearing at sacks of coin like wolves. It's absurd, this pint-sized revolt, a medieval schoolyard riot with lethal stakes. You step closer, heart in your throat, as the girl hurls a rock, her scream fierce enough to shame knights. They're not fighting for taxes or land, but for the stories they heard. Tyler's fire, your mob's mad dream, and it's both beautiful and brutal. But the square's no sanctuary. Hoofbeats rumble and your gut clenches. Soldiers, their torches like predators' eyes. The children don't falter. The boy waves his plank shouting, "We're free," and you choke on the lie. You're no hero, but you lunge forward, shoving a girl behind a crate as swords flash. Some kids scatter, others stand, their stones no match for steel. A boy falls, blood blooming on his tunic, and you gag, the revolt's cost carved in his small frame. You pull the girl away, her braids soft in your hand, and run, her sobs louder than the clash behind. You hide in a doorway, the children's march a fading echo, their chant drowned by screams. The revolt's a graveyard now, and these kids with their sticks and dreams are its youngest ghosts. You're a father, a farmer, and you've failed them. Your rage no shield against the Lord's blades. The girl clings to you, her stone still clutched, and you whisper promises you can't keep. Safety, home, a world that doesn't crush the small. The square's silent now, save for the wind, and you know the children's march is over. You move on, the girl's hand in yours, the children's courage a weight you'll carry. The peasants' revolt burned bright, and they marched in its light, but fires fade, and you're left with their echoes, a farmer who saw innocence dare and break. You're huddled in a dank barn outside London, 1381, the peasants' revolt a shattered dream as you hide with a handful of rebels. Your cloak's soaked, your hands empty of the scythe you once waved, and the air's thick with hay and fear. Whispers slither through the dark, traitors among you, selling names to the lords for a pardon's thin promise. Eyes dart, hands twitch near knives, and you're no judge, just a farmer who burned records and now dreads the cost. This isn't brotherhood. It's a medieval witch hunt, and the traitor's whisper is a blade at your throat. The barn's a fragile sanctuary, its walls creaking under the wind's weight. You sit on a bale, your neighbour Will beside you, his face half-shadowed. He's quiet, too quiet, his fingers picking at a straw like it holds secrets. You've known him since boyhood, shared ale and grief, but now every glance feels like a verdict. Someone coughs, and the group tenses. There's Ellen, her knife still bloodied from the women's wrath, staring at a man who joined late, his boots too clean. The revolt's fire is gone, and suspicion's the ash choking you all. A whisper breaks the silence, low and venomous. "Heard Tom sold us out," a rebel mutters, nodding at a figure in the corner. Tom, the weaver who burned ledgers with you, flinches, his denial too quick. "Lies," he spits, but his eyes flick to the door and your stomach knots. You're no spy, but you've seen the gallows, the hanged dreamers swaying, and you know the lords buy loyalty with coin or fear. The barn's a trap now, each word a spark that could ignite a brawl, and you're caught, your trust as broken as the revolt. Ellen stands, her knife gleaming in the moonlight seeping through cracks. "Who's the rat?" she snarls, and the group shifts, hands on weapons. You're silent, but your mind races. Will's silence, Tom's nerves, the new man's boots. The revolt was your family, your fist against the lords, but now it's a snake eating its own tail. You remember what Tyler's blood, the king's false words, and realise betrayal was always part of this game. A creak outside, hoofbeats maybe, and the whispers stop, all eyes on the door, dread thicker than the haze dust. You edge toward Will, your voice low. "Truth, now," you murmur, and he meets your gaze, his eyes hollow. "I'd never," he says, but his hand's near his knife and you step back, heart hammering. The barn's a powder keg, and the traitor's whisper, real or not, has lit the fuse. Ellen lunges at Tom, her blade grazing his arm, and he bolts, the door slamming behind him. Shouts erupt, rebels chasing, and you're left, frozen. The barn empty, save for Will's heavy breathing and your own pounding pulse. You slip out, the traitors whisper a ghost in your ears. The peasants' revolt dared to rise, and you with it, but betrayal's a shadow you can't outrun. Will's face, Tom's flight, Ellen's rage, they're the revolt's last notes, a song of trust turned to ash. You're a farmer, not a judge, but you've lost more than a cause. You've lost the men you called kin. You're trudging through a frost-kissed field in 1381 England, the peasants' revolt a fading echo as you flee the barn's betrayal. Your cloak's a tattered rag, your hands empty of the scythe that once felt like power, and the world's gone still, save for the wind's low moan. Villages smoulder in the distance, their hearths cold, their rebels hanged or scattered. The fields once loud with your mob's chants are quiet now, a graveyard of dreams where hope lies buried. This isn't a retreat, it's a medieval elegy, and you're a farmer mourning the fire that burned too brief. The stars are sharp, indifferent, as you stumble over ruts you once ploughed. You think of Wat Tyler's voice, the wine-soaked sprees, the women's wrath, all silenced, like a song cut mid-verse. Your breath clouds the air, each puff a ghost of the mob's roar, and you're alone, save for memories of pikes and flames. The revolt was your lunge at freedom, a chance to unchain your kids from Lord's greed. But now the fields stretch empty, their silence louder than any battle. You're no fugitive hero, just a man who dared and lost, your patched boots sinking into mud that feels like fate. A distant bell tolls, a church mourning its own, priests who cursed you, villagers who turned away. You clutch your rosary, its beads worn smooth, but prayer feels hollow when the gallows creak still rings in your ears. The fields hold ghosts. Tom's laugh, Ellen's knife, the children's march, all snuffed out by steel and rope. You pass a burned-out manor, its stones charred, a relic of your rage. It's quiet too, no looters left, no lords yet returned, just ash whispering of what was. The revolt's spark is gone, and you're its shadow, walking a land that's forgotten your name. You pause by a hedge, the cold biting your fingers, and see your village on the horizon, its roofs dark. You want to go back, to hold your kids, to plough fields instead of graves, but the Lord's riders are out there, hunting stragglers. The quiet's a lie, a held breath before the sword falls, and you're not safe, not forgiven. The revolt was your heart, your fist, but it's left you hollow, a farmer with nothing but frost and fear. You wonder if the fields will ever sing again, or if they'll stay silent, a tomb for the dreams you carried. You move on, the quiet fields a weight you can't shake. The peasants' revolt was ablaze, and you burned with it, but fires die, and you're left with the chill, a man who marched and now walks alone. The stars watch, and you keep going, toward a home that might not take you back. You're crouched in a ditch. 1381 England, the peasants' revolt, a broken memory as hoofbeats thunder closer. Your cloak's mud-soaked, your breath a ragged prayer, and the noble's revenge is a storm breaking over the land. Riders in steel, their banners snapping like vipers, hunt rebels like you, their swords hungry for the blood of those who burned manors and raised pikes. The field's quiet is shattered by screams, and you're no warrior, just a farmer who dared too much, now prey in a lord's hunt. This isn't justice, it's a medieval purge, and your revolt's spark is the fuel for their wrath. The riders sweep through a nearby village, its thatch roofs blazing as they drag out stragglers. You hear a woman's cry, maybe Ellen's sister, cut short by a blade's thud. Your stomach lurches, the gallows creak fresh in your mind, but this is worse. A slaughter, not a trial. The lords are reclaiming their world, erasing your revolt with fire and steel. You press deeper into the ditch, thorns tearing your hands, and glimpse a rider's helm, its visor a blank face of vengeance. You're not a name to them, just a serf who forgot his place, and their swords don't care for your hunger. The air's thick with smoke and blood, the noble's revenge a machine grinding down your kin. A boy, too slow, stumbles into the open, and a lance pins him to the earth, his scream a knife in your chest. You're no hero, but you want to run to him, to fight, yet your scythe's gone, your courage buried with Wat Tyler's blood. The riders laugh, their voices cold as the frost, and you realise the revolt's cost. Not just your dream, but your people, your home, all fodder for their blades. The Lord's banners fly high, mocking the ashes of your rebellion. You crawl along the ditch, the screams fading but never gone. A village burns, its glow a funeral pyre for the women's wrath, the children's march, the records you burned. The nobles don't just kill, they erase, rebuilding their order on your bones. You think of your kids waiting for a father who might never return, and the guilt's heavier than any tax. The revolt was your stand, your mad hope, but it's left you crawling, a fugitive in a land you once ploughed. The riders' hoofbeats slow, moving to another village, but their shadow lingers, a promise of more blood. A twig snaps and you freeze, heart hammering, but it's just a rat. The noble's revenge is everywhere, though, a noose tightening around the revolt's last gasps. You're a farmer, not a martyr, and survival's a bitter taste when your kin are dying. The ditch hides you, but not your shame, your fear, your fading fire. The lords have won, their steel sharper than your scythe ever was, and the world's theirs again, built on the graves of your dreams. You crawl on, the noble's revenge afire at your back. The peasants' revolt dared to rise, and you with it, but their swords are the final word, and you're left with wounds that won't heal, a man who fought and now flees. You're slumped in a dim tavern, 1381 England fading into winter, the peasants' revolt a ghost in your bones. Your cloak's a patched ruin, your hands raw from days of hiding, but the ale's tang and the firelight's glow offer a fragile shelter. Whispers swirl among the drinkers, tales of what Tyler's fire, the women's wrath, the children's march, spinning your rebellion into legend. The fields are quiet, the gallows full, but here in mugs and murmurs, the revolt takes root, a myth growing wild. This isn't history, it's a medieval campfire story, and you're a farmer who's become part of its song. The tavern's a haze of smoke and secrets, its walls scarred from fights you didn't start. A bard, his lute off-key, sings of Tyler's stand, painting him a saint with a scythe. You smirk, bitter, because he was just a roofer, his blood as real as the mud on your boots. Yet the drinkers lean in, eyes bright, as the bard weaves your mob's chaos into a tale of heroes defying lords. They don't mention the hangings, the traitors, the nobles' revenge, just the fire, the pikes, the dream. You're no hero, but your revolt's a spark in their hearts, and that's a strange kind of life. A woman at the bar, her hands knotted from work, adds her own verse, how she hid rebels, fed them scraps. Another man, his voice slurred, boasts of burning a tax roll, though you don't recall him there. The myth grows, stitching your pain into something bigger, something that might outlast the Lord's swords. You sip your ale, its bite sharp, and feel the weight of their words. Tyler's name, your village's rage, now a story to warm cold nights. It's absurd, this alchemy of blood into ballads, but it's all you have left, a flicker of the revolt's mad hope. The fire crackles and you see faces in the flames. Ellen's snarl, the boy with the plank, all gone but not forgotten. The myth doesn't save them, doesn't fill your kids' bellies, but it's a seed, buried in taverns and hearts that the lords can't uproot. You're no bard, just a man who swung a scythe and ran, yet you're part of this tale, your defiance a thread in its weave. The drinkers raise mugs, toasting freedom, and you join, your voice cracked, because even a lost cause can echo. Outside the wind howls, but the tavern's warm and the myth takes root, fragile but stubborn. The peasant's revolt is dead, its rebels dust, but its story lives, a whisper against the Lord's stone walls. You're a farmer, not a legend, but you've left a mark, and that's enough to carry you into the night. You're standing at the edge of your village, 1381 England, the peasant's revolt, a scar on your soul. Dawn's cold claws at your patched cloak, the fields silent where you once marched with a scythe. Your home's ahead, its door half open, but the cost of defiance weighs heavier than the gallows. Your kin's hunger, your neighbours' graves, the myth that's all that's left of your fight. The lords have won, their swords carving order from your chaos, and you're no rebel now, just a farmer counting losses. This isn't a triumph. It's a medieval reckoning, and you're paying the price for daring to dream. The village is a husk, roofs burned, fields trampled, the air sour with ash and grief. You pass the miller's house, its door marked with a cross, his family gone to plague or rope. Your revolt was a fire, burning manors, raising pikes, but it scorched your own roots too. You think of Tyler's blood, the women's knives, the children's stones, all for a freedom you tasted but couldn't hold. Your kids wait inside, their eyes too big for their faces, and you've nothing to give but a stolen spoon and a heart full of ghosts.